Hello. Hi, welcome to this video, which is going to introduce you to the Kingswood School Geography GCSE trip to Iceland going in October 2025. What we're going to aim to do during this video is just to give you an overview of the trip, a sense of what is going to be offered on the trip, so the kind of activities, kind of itinerary, just a little bit of background about Iceland, kind of how it fits into the curriculum, and then at the end of it, because the key thing really is attached to the email was a SurveyMonkey link. The SurveyMonkey link just asks for you to say, yes, I would like to go. If you reply to that, your name will be put onto a list. We will then arrange payment details and so on and so forth. So just if you fill in that SurveyMonkey, just please be certain that you've got the information and this is good and you're in. If you have questions in the meantime, please just communicate with myself, Mr. Moat, or another member of the Geography Department prior to confirming via SurveyMonkey. The cost, we're looking at between £1,500 and £1,600. It does depend a bit on the number of students going, and there's a few little variables like the cost of the coach to the airport and things. But if we can work on those estimates, again, we'll be able to give you a more accurate cost when we know the exact number of students. So, just a little overview. Iceland, it's a wonderful place. We do an annual trip there. So this trip is for all current year 10 students. So if you come on this trip, you'll be going in October of your year 11, which is a great time of year to go. And it's a really unique country. It's very hard to get the same range of unique geographical landscapes, to be honest, until you get to New Zealand, which obviously is a much further place to visit. So it's a place that has a huge amount of tectonic activity. So it's sort of created by volcanism. And then also due to its high latitude, it's also massively shaped by glaciers, which are absolutely spectacular. And that unique combination of kind of tectonics, glacial activity, some of the rivers and the waterfalls really creates a very unique environment, a very unique place, which we feel offers an enormous value to a geographer. It's a very awe-inspiring location, and it really is unique to certainly within Europe. It's actually a unique destination. There's some information here. It's also a great place to go. It's not a massively long flight. We don't have to change time zones. So it's also a really convenient place to go. The Icelandic speak fantastic English. So yeah, it works really, really well. Throughout the GCSE, so if you're in year 10 right now, you're currently doing a unit on hazards. Obviously, you've just been looking at tectonics and you've looked at examples of earthquakes. So Iceland sits on a constructive plate boundary, so it's obviously a really good place to see tectonics in action. It's also great for looking at rivers. It's a really again, some of the river landscapes and the waterfalls are absolutely incredible. They really are impressive. It also obviously links to some of the glacial stuff, which we don't do, but is a really powerful, useful aspect of geography to know about. It also ties some of the human stuff. So it's going to tie to this idea of population, urban change. Iceland and obviously the capital city Reykjavik are quite unique places, the way they've formed, where they've been shaped. We'll also look at things like food and energy resources. Again, Iceland's very unique in the fact that it really can produce all its energy geothermally. So it has an abundance of energy. It's one of the most energy rich countries in the world. And in fact, it goes out of its way to do industries that are energy intensive because it has so much essentially free energy. Food as well. So food, obviously, a negative of the high latitude is very hard to grow things. So we look at how they overcome the food issues. There's an awful lot of greenhouses. It's amazing in a geothermally heated greenhouse what you can grow. But inevitably, food resources are a real challenge. So Iceland, as well as just being a fantastically exciting or inspiring place, it also links to quite a few aspects of the curriculum that you have done and you will continue to do in the GCSE. we really try and make sure the trip is as active as possible. So the way the kind of trip works is we'll have a few different bases, so a few different kind of hotels we stay in, and then you will move between those places by coach. And that coach will kind of take you over a day to various different locations where there will be some short walks. Most of them, it's fairly easy to get from the coach to the waterfall or the glacier. Um, but there's also some activities involved, which I'll talk about in a bit. So, just a brief bit of geography for those that just love to understand the geography. Iceland sits on the Atlantic Ridge, which is a constructive plate margin that's gradually pushing Europe and North America further apart, and has been doing so for many millions of years. Underneath Iceland is a hotspot. So that hotspot is an area of particularly rich tectonic activity, and that has produced rapid volcanism. So Iceland, and we can see here, is home to an awful lot of volcanoes. And in fact, the entire of Iceland is fundamentally just cooled lava. Um, so it has this real this black rock, this kind of basaltic rock that's just cooled lava. And what's particularly cool is if you look in the south there, Surtsey, Jaime are actually new islands that were created relatively recently by volcanic activity finally erupting and bursting through the water. So it's a relatively new place. It's constantly moving. It's constantly having new volcanism. And so obviously for that in itself, it's a fantastic place for us to visit. It's also, this is a map showing the kind of topography and the land. It's also got Europe's largest ice cap, Vatnajökull. It's home to several other smaller glaciers. Famously, obviously, it had the volcano that erupted, that melted the glacier, that released the ash cloud, which closed down flights for a few weeks in Europe. I'm not going to try and pronounce that name. Mr. Smythe does an excellent job of pronouncing that name. You can see in the northwest, there's a real distinct fjord part to Iceland, which again is a very unique landscape. But also you'll notice that fundamentally it's a landscape where most people live right on the coast, and there's the inland area is particularly wild. When we go on our trip, we will very much be based in the southwest of Iceland. All right, if you look at that scale bar, the distances are more than enough, and the southwest of Iceland really does give enough of a flavour of the country, kind of condensed into this sort of golden circle region. And many of the places on this map are places you'll be visiting, and I'm sure some of these places you may have heard of before. So just a rough itinerary. Now the itinerary is still being finalised, but a rough itinerary to give you a flavour of what we'll do. So we will depart on Saturday morning from Kingswood School. We'll get a coach to Heathrow. We'll fly via Iceland Air. We'll land into Reykjavik, and we'll have a little bit of time crossing the Reykjavik Peninsula. This is full of geothermal tectonic activity, so there's lots of sulfur pools, hot springs, sulfur taras, loads of evidence of kind of geothermal tectonic activity, which is quite unusual. It's obviously very smelly, but quite cool. We'll go to this spot. This is the bridge between the continents. This is the point where the European and North American plates are dividing, and you can sort of see there the bridge is literally crossing between the two continents, and that's constantly getting further apart. So it's quite a nice visual demonstration of how a constructive margin forms. So again, hot springs, sulfur taras. There's some beautiful coastal landscapes. There's really like rich black rock. It's a very unusual landscape, very wild coast. So we'll go to some beautiful coastal landscapes on the Reykjavik Peninsula. Day two. So day two, we'll go to this area, Strokor and Giza. So these are superheated kind of plumes of water that erupt regularly. It's obviously a very, very popular thing to visit, very unique to Iceland, these kind of regularly erupting geysers. Gullfoss, which is this absolutely stunning waterfall. The waterfalls really are incredible. They're absolutely just phenomenal things. Very nothing like anything we get in the UK. So we'll visit Gullfoss, which is beautiful. That's how it looked when we went a few years ago. So you can obviously get a feel for the conditions. I'll talk a little bit about what to bring, but hopefully by showing you some photos, you'll get a sense of what climate to expect when you're there. There you go, some happy students enjoying the view. We'll go to this dairy farm. There's a really cool. We talk about food, talk about the economy. There's an example is dairy farm. This is Mr. Gordon's highlight of the trip. Um, do ask Mr. Gordon about it. It's really cool. They kind of diversified their dairy farm. They produce this lovely ice cream. So you can actually go in and they have the cows in a barn. You can sort of look at the cows and get some ice cream, which is really a really lovely thing to do. Um, okay, Thingvellir. This is again another spot where the two tectonic plates are moving apart. So again, if you look on the sort of the horizon of that path there, you can see how the plates are pulled apart. It's actually the site of the world's oldest parliament. So the sort of 1000 AD-ish. The Icelandics had a parliament. So they had a democratically elected parliament, which is again a very unusual sort of claim to fame. So again, getting that sense of how the continents are splitting apart. Um, I mentioned about food and about energy. Greenhouses, you'll see a huge number of greenhouses, and they produce all sorts of food. You'll notice behind the greenhouses smoke rising. There's literally just like there's so many kind of vents in the ground where geothermal energy is literally just spouting out. It's quite interesting going around the greenhouses just to get a sense of their importance in kind of Icelandic culture. There are some beautiful waterfalls. Some absolutely beautiful waterfalls. It's really cool. You can always walk behind them. This one's really, really magical. And they kind of really cascade onto these wonderful open plains. So again, we'll look at some waterfalls. This one's one of my favorites. You've got to walk a little bit further to see this one, but it's a really spectacular one. You can get right up close to it. It's yeah, really, really cool, this one. You'll notice I'm not trying to pronounce the Icelandic names. I'm not quite brave enough, but hopefully you get a sense of the place. This one's Skogafoss. This really is spectacular. This is often on the front cover of lots of brochures, booklets. It's quite a well photographed waterfall. You can actually walk up the side of this to the top of it. There's a whole set of steps, which again gives you a magnificent view of the waterfall. A real highlight for a lot of people is the glacier walk. So one of the things we do, so we try and make the trip as active as possible. So one of the things we do is we go for a hike on the glacier. So there's some guides. They provide you with crampons, a nice axe, and a helmet. It's not the longest walk. We don't go very far, but obviously you get to go on the glacier. You get to look at the crevasses, the moulin, which is really cool. You can see how far it's retreating, which I think's yeah, I think it's really interesting. Again, some coastal stuff. There's these kind of unique sort of hexagonal pillars, a bit like Giant's Causeway, classic basaltic pillars that are formed. You see some sea stacks in the distance there. So yeah, there's some beautiful coastal scenery. There's some really cool indoor stuff. Obviously, Iceland's physical geography is kind of what sells it. But there's some really cool indoor stuff. There's a few kind of big tourist exhibits they've set up to kind of explain the area. There's a brilliant kind of like tectonic lava type show, which is fantastic. It's super interactive, super impressive for explaining the kind of physical mechanisms about the tectonic activity, how it's shaped the land. Really, really impressively well done. It's a really nice stopover on a cold day just to get inside for a little bit and yeah, see something that's really, really interesting. So yeah, it's like a lava show to visit. Um, yeah, visiting the landscape that was flooded in the Eyjafjallajökull glacier when it erupted and set ash clouds off. Again, visiting the tip, the tongue of a glacier, which has always has those signs saying, "Oh, you know, it used to be here at this year, and it's retreating at a remarkably fast rate." I've actually got pictures of students from say 7 years ago, and even in those 7 years, you can see the difference in how far it's retreated. Monster truck. So we've done this a few times now. So you can take a monster truck ride, which is quite good fun. And we go off on some remarkably rugged, kind of like bouldery roads are the wrong statement, but sort of tracks. Um, this is one of Miss Moore's highlights when she came with us last time, and again, quite a cool way of just getting off the beaten track and seeing some nice scenery. Uh, we'll go through Reykjavik. So Reykjavik's it's a nice place. It's the capital of Iceland. The vast majority of people live in Reykjavik, surrounded by these beautiful mountains. It has some really striking architecture. So it's got a kind of cathedral church. It's got yeah, it's got a very sort of striking landscape. It has this lovely sculpture of like a Viking longboat. It has this is like the opera house. It's a beautiful building, and the sort of the glass is trying to reflect the those sort of hexagonal pillars at the beach. So kind of that sort of tectonic feel. So you can see how the physical geography has really shaped how people interact and have developed their landscape. Um, there's a great so one of the coolest things about Iceland is they love hot tubs, Iceland's things. Sorry, swimming pools. Really, really big into that because everything's geothermally heated. It's basically free to have a swimming pool. So the water is geothermally heated, um, which is awesome. So they have always open air pools, and we'll go. There's one in Reykjavik. It's great. It's got slides, got loads of fun stuff to do. It's got different pools of water at different temperatures, so you can sort of challenge yourself in different temperatures. Or it's got the 10 degrees C tub for the brave few that want to go in that. Um, Students normally really enjoy that. It's not a sort of compulsory thing. You don't have to go swimming, but it's often a real highlight of the trip for many students. And I would say in Iceland, it's a very big cultural aspect of their country. It's a very popular pastime. Um, there's some lava tube caving. So there's these cool kind of lava tubes. So as volcanoes have erupted, they kind of form these sort of tubes and caves underground. And repeated eruptions have kind of eroded and shaped these sort of spherical caves, a bit like a tube. And the lava's kind of cooled around the outside and form like a crust around it. So you can go kind of caving. And again, we get a guide, get sort of head torches and stuff, and we can go scampering through these caves, and they're really, really beautiful things. Really cool spots. So yeah, we do a bit of lava tube caving, which is yeah, super interesting. Um, so where we're staying, again, like we'll be staying in hotels. They are good. They're nothing sort of crazy fancy. Iceland's a very sparsely populated place, so hotels not massive. Um, the food is, as I've sort of alluded to, they have to import a lot of food. Um, the hotels are very set up to cater for school groups. So food is kind of the sort of typical stuff that we school groups enjoy. Fish and chips, burger and chips, stuff like that. There's often less in the way of kind of typical Icelandic fare, but it's not more in the line of the sort of stuff that they know school groups enjoy. Um, yeah, and we stay in a range of different places. We'll stay in Reykjavik. We'll also stay out of Reykjavik. Um, we'll go for some wonders. So on previous trips, we have seen the Northern Lights to a greater or lesser extent. You never know; it's not guaranteed. Um, Obviously, of an evening, it's a great thing to go for a wander, have a little look, have a little explore, because it's quite a nice thing to keep our eyes out for. So you never know. So that's just a flavour of the place, what we'll be doing, things like that. Just a bit of admin. Um, Geez, that's 600 pounds. Yeah, students are sharing multi-bedrooms. So typically 3 to 6 students per room. As staff, we will do rooming in advance. But yeah, you can be expecting to share a room with a few other students. Cost of the trip, everything's included. Okay, so transport, activities, accommodation, everything. All foods included. Obviously, students can bring spending money. Um, there will be opportunities to buy snacks, and there will be opportunities to buy souvenirs. It's a very expensive place, so they do many of these places. Obviously, now they're popular tourist spots. They do have souvenirs, sort of selling areas, but they are expensive. It's not a cheap place to buy stuff. So I typically wouldn't necessarily encourage um, loads of spending money or encourage students to buy loads of, bring loads of souvenirs back. But there are opportunities. But the key thing is the cost does cover everything. Um, in terms of just for the record, obviously the clothing, you can sort of see the images. It's typically around about freezing. Um, so it is cold. So, big warm jackets, hat, gloves, scarf, things like that are going to be worthwhile. It's often quite dry. Um, but going near the waterfalls, you get wet. So again, waterproof top and bottoms is often recommended going up to the waterfalls because yeah, you will get soaking wet. We will arrange for hoodies, like trip hoodies, which are always very popular. So that's obviously a good, nice warm item of clothing to help you. For the record, we work with Discover the World, so they run I think they're the biggest provider of trips to Iceland for any school. So they're very proficient. They're very knowledgeable. They've got very good teams. They also help us get good deals because they work in economies of scale. So the experiences and trip we're able to offer, whilst it is expensive, it's also very good value for what you're getting. So yeah, they're a really, really strong partner. So, just finally, as I said, if you're interested, you're still listening to this, which you may not be, please complete Survey Monkey. The Survey Monkey should be if you are in, if you're definitely keen to go. Um, and then essentially we will send out payment details. All right, and obviously further information. So only fill in the Survey Monkey if you're confident you're going to go. If you're not sure, please or you have any questions, please get in touch with me before you do that. Okay, thank you very much for listening. We will end this now. Yes, thank you. Goodbye.